Good morning, hello, good evening, New Yorkers, good evening, everyone in the Northern Hemisphere, or it might be late at night where you are. I am here with the third of the Omer conversations. Today we're going to be talking about Tiferet, which means beauty and harmony and compassion. And given everything that's going on right now, there couldn't be a better time to be having this discussion, for it's what we all need so deeply. In this series, I'm talking to 7 incredibly inspiring women. I'm speaking to each one of them to explore the Sefirot, which are, I'll go into soon, but to explore these ideas in a really practical terms, because I believe each one of these women either embody this quality in the way they carry themselves in their lives, or it's something that they are toiling with themselves. And so there's no better way that we can relate to these ideas as they bubble up in our contemporary, modern, everyday experience than to look at practical examples of how they are living and breathing qualities in the world today through the lives of these beautiful, beautiful women. So the Omer, as a quick recap, is the 49-day period that spans from the second day of Passover until Shavuot. And these 7 weeks, we look at the first 7 weeks were the time between the exodus of the Jewish people in Egypt and the time that they received the Torah. And for them, it was an incredibly healing time to move from the constrictedness of Egypt, to move from the constriction of Egypt, to move from this limitation and this abuse of slave experience to the expansive openness that was required for them to be vessels for the divine download of the Torah. And so we have a healing energy that we still live with in these 7 weeks today. We believe that each one of the 7 weeks corresponds to one of 7 Sefirot. The Sefirot are these divine emotional attributes that Hashem used as lenses through which to create the universe, and as such they're embedded within every aspect of the universe. So we look at these 7 qualities and we use these 7 weeks as a time of deep introspection and revision and personal inquiry. And as we refine on each week, each one of these different qualities, we open ourselves up a little bit more, we grow, we change. And so we too can tap into the incredibly healing energy of this time and use it to enhance our lives, our relationships, and bring healing to the world around us. So I've had 2 conversations so far. The first was with Gabrielle Bernstein about the quality of chesed, loving kindness. And the second conversation was with Robin Euclidis about gevura, which is strength and restraint and discipline. And I'm really excited that tonight, this morning, I will be talking to a dear friend, a new friend, Zivar Amrami. And we're going to be discussing the idea of Tiferet. So the best way to understand Tiferet for me is through metaphor. And first we have to know that Tiferet is the meeting of the previous 2 Sefirot, the quality of chesed, loving kindness, meeting the container or the restraint or the structure of gevura. And those 2 forces coming together in a really healthy way creates the harmony of Tiferet. So I love the metaphor of the dancer because I think that it helps us to really visualize this, but it really applies to any artistic form, any painter, a musician, a makeup artist, a writer. So when you take the chesed side of your art, okay, for the dancer, it's the love with which she wants to inject her soul into the dance. It's just the desire and the passion to move her body and to celebrate the ability to express with this human form. It's probably the passion with which each one of us, have a dance off in our bedrooms, and we're just purely enjoying the movement of body to rhythm. That's the chesed side of Tiferet. But then when you have a professional dancer, you've got the Gevura side. You've got her years of discipline and her training. And you have the moment by moment muscle constrictions, this form with which you can hold because of the strength of each muscle. And that's her Gevura side of thing. The regiment, the structure, the restraint with which she has to contract each muscle to hold these graceful poses. And you put this together, her passion and her love for dance, with the incredible discipline of learning her craft. And we get the performance in front of us. We watch the dance and it's immaculate and it flows and we can relate to it. And she compels us with her movements. And we're not analyzing the difference between what is her passion and what is her year of training and what is her muscular control in that moment. We don't see them as separate. We just see the result in front of us, this harmony, this beauty. And that's Tiferet. And that comes up when you look at a jazz musician who is just playing, and we're so taken away by the spirit of the music. And it's once again, the combination of his love for the music, his desire to express, with the control of these musical notes on a scale. You only have so many notes, and he just combines them in a way after his years of training that feels incredibly uplifting. And that is Tiferet, this melding of those two forces of Chesed and Gevura. Now, excuse me. Because our guest today is a photographer, I also want to bring the metaphor of the photograph. We take a stream of light, and we filter it through a box, we filter it through a container, and we imprint this light onto a negative. Once again, the chesed, the flow, meeting the restriction and the restraint of this container. And we create an image on a paper. That's the Tiferet, that's the meeting of these two forces. When Hashem creates the world in every moment, when he originally created and he continues to create it, we believe that he's placing these two qualities together in such a way that his benevolence, his love for us, finds a finite expression in the physical world. And if it wasn't for the combination of these two lenses, of these two divine emanations of Chesed and Gevura, his benevolence would just be too big for us to contain. It would be too big for us to experience here as limited, finite beings. And so his combination of these two, allowing us to experience it, allowing us to experience creation, allowing us to experience the Chesed and Gevura, the combination of them is his compassion. And that's how we understand Tiferet, as compassion. So this week of the Omer, which was actually last week, but when we look at week 3 of the Omer, when we look at the healing aspect of compassion and of beauty, we can start to consider these qualities in our own lives. So if we're in the process of an artistic expression, are we successfully combining or harmoniously combining our love for what we do with the discipline of training that is required to perfect our craft? How are we meeting those two qualities? And then from a compassion standpoint, how are we compassionate to ourselves? Do we err on the side of discipline? Are we too disciplined and critical with ourselves? Or do we allow the love that we have for the people we care about to flow back inwards? Do we direct that internally as well? It's easy to have compassion for our children, for our family, because we're connected to them. But are we showing up with compassion for the people beyond our immediate circle? Are we showing up with compassion for communities who are not our own, who desperately need it right now? And how do we do that? Do we show that compassion with arrogance from a position of superiority? Or is it a deeply felt, heartfelt connection from one person to another where we relate on a really human level? In our relationships, even with our loved ones, how are we being compassionate? How can we balance this flow of love with gentle accountability in order to bring beauty into our relationships, to bring beauty into the world? So these are the thoughts that trickle in when we talk about Tiferet, and these are the ideas that we can explore in order to grow and heal. Now, I'm about to introduce Zivar, who I'm so excited to speak to because I know that I'm going to learn so much from her today. Last night I thought she's just a wise-hearted woman. She really is. And she's married to a wise-hearted man. And together they bring so much Tiferet through the world, through their teaching, through their beautiful daughters. And I immediately thought of Zivar when I considered talking about this quality. First of all, she's an artist, and you'll see through her Instagram, but also through other portals, she just brings so much thoughtfulness into each one of her words, into each one of her images. And there's this combination of delicacy and strength, which is so apparent in all the art that she puts into the world. And then as I watched her journey into motherhood for the second time, what was really evident was this idea of self-compassion that was coming through. Zivar was really honoring the space she needed through that process, the support system she needed. She talks a lot about self-care and this idea of self-compassion. And then we see the compassion also coming up in her romantic relationship and her parenting. And so this idea of her life being a slow, artful expression, nothing feels manufactured. It's all deeply true and raw and honest and comes across as a manifestation of Tiferet in my eyes. So I'm going to bring Zivar on. I don't know, Zivar, if you can request to join. I know that she'll have so much to say about this quality. Here we go. Thank you, honey. While Zivar comes on, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about her. She's an artist and a writer and a mother of two beautiful daughters. Hi, Zivar.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. I'm just telling them a little bit about your work. She is dedicated to story and bringing forth wisdom from different traditions as a way to make sense of and heal our everyday. She's written for the New Yorker. She offers lectures at the Public Theatre. She's exhibited her work in New York and internationally. And it's so beautiful to hear that she's currently working on a film about motherhood and solitude, which I feel is just coming across through your daily posts and reflections so deeply. And she's also working on a birthing deck with Yiska Obadia to support women through birth and beyond. And I can't wait for that to come into fruition in its due time. Welcome, Zivar. Thank you so much. I know that you have a huge amount that you're holding right now. So thank you for opening up to this.
Yeah, my daughters are sleeping for now, but you may hear one wake up. That's just part of us right now, where we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. On my end too. There can be cries, there can be anything at this point.
Big feeling.
So I know, I know. And Zivar, so just to open up, you were telling me a little bit about the idea of Tiferet um, and the metaphor of a tree. And I thought that that could be, I know that trees are providing so much comfort for you right now. And this time of spring, it's really drawing everyone in the Northern Hemisphere outside. Everyone's reconnecting with nature. So maybe you can paint that picture a bit more about how you see Tiferet and nature.
Well, first of all, I loved listening to your description of Tiferet because in ways it mimicked my own thoughts about it, but in other ways it was completely different than how I think of Tiferet. And what I love so much about Jewish wisdom and these old wisdom traditions in general is that they allow you to return to them each year in a new perspective based on where you are, right? Like based on where you
Sure.
and yeah, so the tree. I love trees. I feel very held by the trees when I am out with my daughter. I don't really listen to music or podcasts. I just allow myself to breathe with the trees, and they just really feel like beautiful companions. And Tiferet is the heart chakra. It's the center. And when you think of a tree, you have the branches and then you have the roots. And in the center is the sturdy trunk, and how it absorbs light and how it feeds it to the roots is a really important aspect of the tree, right? And so Tiferet means beauty. It's like if you look at the shorish, if you look at the root, but it also means branches. And so what does it mean to kind of be centered in your heart chakra, in your singularity, and also to be able to branch out and to feel all of the things and to be able to, like you said, filter the light through into the root and do it in a way that is disciplined, in a way that is discerning, but also in a way that is fluid and generous. And to me, Tiferet has so many it's funny when you said to me, I want to talk about Tiferet with you. I was like, me, Tiferet? I don't feel like Tiferet at all. But the more I actually engaged with it, the more I felt very aligned with the quality and the attributes of Tiferet. And I'm lately very interested in archetypes, and Chesed it works alongside the archetype of Abraham, our forefather Abraham, and then Gevura is Yitzchak, and then Tiferet is Yaakov. And I was thinking about the story of Jacob, of Yaakov and his brother, and the fact that he was always wanting to be the older, and he tricks his brother into taking the birthright, first monetarily the birthright, then the spiritual birthright. Then he runs away for 20 years, and then he wrestles with the angel, and then he has to face like this demon, this shadow of his, this thing that he had done. And then in that, he's able to meet his brother and bow at his feet, have this reconciliation. And to me, Tiferet is the reconciliation of us with us, of us with our divinity, really. Because our divinity holds all of those things effortlessly, like chesed, kindness, like gevura, restraint. It's us who gets muddled with it. And so
Yes.
Tiferet to me is like that Yaakov, that Jacob Esav moment where, or even pre Esav, but this moment of reconciliation of who we are so that we can show up in the world fluid.
Oh, Zivar, that is so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And this idea that we're all holding all of it in every moment. And when it melds and finds that harmony, that's the Tiferet. And and I also like to think, even though you didn't feel so Tiferet in the moment, and I think we talk about that a bit later, postpartum experience, but the idea that as you painted this picture of the tree, maybe you felt like your leaves or your buds weren't open, or you weren't so in touch with your roots, but there was your trunk, your heart chakra, full of Tiferet. And even without your awareness, you were still holding so steady in that experience on a deeper level that I could look at you and feel like you had that strength of spirit coming out of your pores. And to me, it felt so obvious that that was what I wanted to talk to you about. So that our our heart chakra and the trunk of the tree can always stay steady, even when we're not seeing the buds, even when we're not feeling the brightness of the leaves.
Beautiful. And also, I think of the micro and the macro, right? Like, so we're in our micro moments, especially as mothers, like, it's so much about what's happening in this moment. The next moment is Ara going to wake up now? Am I going to have to go find her? She's teething. What can I do in this moment? And so it sometimes takes the mirror of you, of my husband or whatever, to be able to like look back and see me bigger than where I am, centered right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I noticed that you're taking these walks outside, and um, you you'll take a moment and magnify it, whether it's the beauty of the canopy of cherry blossoms above you, or the fragment of a leaf, or even just focusing on an idea or a thought in your writing. And your work is as a photographer, so can you talk a little bit about how you balance this like chesed expression of aura for your craft? And then are you always an artist looking for these moments, or do you feel like you're just attuned to them? How does chesed aura come up as Tiferet in your work as an artist?
Hmm. You know, it's interesting. Like for a long time, it was hard for me to say that I was a photographer. It felt very like big, and to be able to,
Mm.
I worked in the nonprofit sector for a while, and then I sort of jumped the ship and decided to be in photography. And now photographer also feels like it's not right. It doesn't fit fully. Like I feel more like an artist, and maybe not even an artist. I don't even know what it is, but in terms of the photograph, in terms of how I see the world, I was thinking back, when I was a kid, um, I was always looking for pieces of stories, um, and how to make sense of my family structure, my parents, how they came to be with each other, how they came to have us. And I would spend hours looking at photographs. And, my father's from Iran, and my
Yeah.
mom, Soda, she's a convert, and like trying to make sense of this story that no one else had. It was very unique to our family. And so I would like really like I was really like a detective looking at the gestures of the hands and all of that, and I was wanting to find the love, the the beginning of story, all of that. And I think I've always carried that with me, a desire to sort of find the story, the nuance beneath what is being shared and what is being told. Because of course, my parents had a story that they told us, but I felt like there was more. And
Mm.
um, when I got really deep into photography, it was really more just my desire to know more about people and the way people work and the way people are in the world. And it was the medium to do that. And through this medium of photography and looking at others, really, I'm just trying to make sense of myself. You know,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day, all of the work is really to know myself more and to know myself better, so that, like we talked about earlier, so I can stand in my heart chakra and be like steady, steady, steady. Um, and when I go outside and I look around, I'm not looking for a photograph. I definitely see the world in frames. It's like the gevura, the training of the frame. Um,
Yeah.
but I just see what I need to see that day and what I want to see, like there's that quality of just like being with what is being shown. And in a way, sometimes I'll take photographs and at the end of the day I'm like, "Oh, that's what I needed today. I needed to see
Right.
being compassionate, or I needed to see trees, or I needed to see whatever."
Right. That was the gift that reminded you of what you needed to remember in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And as you talk about that, it sounds like how you explore your art is a form of self-care and self-inquiry, which is what we're doing, in a really exaggerated way during these 7 weeks of the Omer, this idea of exploring quality to cast the lens inward and grow and heal. And you talk a lot about taking time for self-care, and I know that probably um, like doesn't always feel like that for you with two young daughters and a husband and a community, and but I do see that you have made it a priority to at least bring that into your life through different rituals, and I find that hard to do, so I learn from you. But can you talk a little bit about that? Were you always so compassionate towards yourself, or is this something that you had to think deeply about and bring in more and more over the years? And what does it look like on a daily basis?
I first want to know why it's hard for you to do.
um, I think I
I,
think that the models that I had were really selfless, and and that selflessness uh, and that incredible love, that's how love was shown and given. And so it's an idea of retraining and educating myself that it can look different without compromising the love.
yeah. Um, yeah, so much of who we are is training, right? Is nurtured in us. And that's beautiful that they were selfless, that there's a
Yeah.
beauty to, there's a holding of both, right? It's like the chesed gebura. Um, no, I've not always been good at self-care. In fact, I've been really bad at taking care of myself. And I think that you could look at it ways. Like you could look at it as I took care of myself in ways that I thought were the right way because I wasn't paying attention to what I actually needed. So I would
Yeah.
do things that other people thought were a good idea for me, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I would feel depleted and anxious and irritable. And so I had to really go through this process of really respecting myself. To me, it's self-respect. It's like
Yeah.
I care deeply about showing up, and in order for me to show up, I need to be centered in myself. I need to be awake and to be nourished, really.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a very sensitive person. I think that I show that in my photography, in my writing, and that requires a lot of space to be with myself personally. I think everybody has different needs in terms of how much they need to
Yeah.
care for. And I felt a lot of shame around my that need for quiet, that need for solitude, um, and care for a long time. And I dated people and I was with people who were critical of that and judgmental of that. And I got to a place right before I met, or right before I re-met Zach, because I actually had met him long ago, but right before I re-met Zach, that I was like, you know what? I matter to myself, and it's okay, and it's okay. Like and I think for me, part of the journey of that was actually leaving the nonprofit world and choosing to be an artist, which is what my calling was. Even
Mm.
like I felt like I had to be in the nonprofit world to be worthy and to have value, to help, right? So it's definitely a journey, and through motherhood, it's a whole other journey of how to take care of myself. But I know that I'm reactive,
Yeah.
I'm irritable, I'm all those things if I don't have the minimum care of myself. And my
Yeah.
husband, he respects that and he honors that. And so, like, if there is like 20 minutes, a 20-minute window, I'll take it. And I
Yeah.
take it without really feeling badly about it.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what sorts of things do you do to replenish?
A lot of solitude. I'm someone who really likes to be alone. I like my own
Yeah.
company a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I've been years, I did all this crazy workout stuff. Like, I mean, not crazy. I would run a few times a week, and
Yeah.
I was hard on myself, physically. Like, it wasn't even about being thinner or this or that, or it was more just like, it was a running away from myself, really. I was running away from myself. And in the last few years, I went through a pretty big sort of awakening that a trauma sort of came up for me in the last few years. And through that process of deep healing, and in that, I really felt the call and the whispers to enjoy movement and to be in my pleasure and to be in
Mm.
pleasure of embodiment versus the like harshness and judgment around self. And so I've gone really into Pilates, which has been incredible. It's also very
Yeah.
core art,
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so I actually am not one of those people. My husband laughs. He calls me a cheap date because I'm not one of those people who needs to go to the spa or needs to go to. I actually don't care about that stuff at all.
Yeah.
I have the things I do at home, like my home Pilates. I do dry brush. I sit in solitude, and really just going outside. I mean,
Yeah.
having some breathing room is very helpful for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think of so much as you describe that because, first of all, through these lenses of Chesed and Gevurah, when you described that it was imbalanced, and the running away from yourself, that force of energy, and once you met it with more love towards yourself, you found this experience of Tiferet, if we're going to, place it in those lenses. And then I think of how powerful what you're doing is for your daughters, because when we look at the model that you are becoming for them with this surrender and with this interconnectedness, how balanced example they have, what a balanced tree, that they have sheltering them and creating a home for them. And I think that it's so beautiful to know that, you've journeyed with this moved through different imbalances, and now you're finding a path which is healthy for you right now, and may evolve further as you change, but you're grounded in it, and you're very sensitive and aware of what your needs are, and you have the strength and the courage to voice those and to act on them.
Yeah.
And as you, I know you also, as you sort of like, because photography feels uncomfortable, the label of a photographer feels uncomfortable, and you are immersed in motherhood right now, nourishing your newborn, and taking care of your 5-year-old. Do you like think about self-compassion in terms of that shifting identity and being comfortable with that shifting identity?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I feel very present with what's in front of me and less interested in identification lately. Um, I think it's been for me in the healing that I've done. I'm not interested in being identified, and it can kind of sound like aloof or like willing to choose, but actually for me, it's like I feel very centered in myself, and I also feel like all of us are so unique. And so to say that I am this now and I'm going to be this later, or I'm this forever, or this is who I am, it just feels almost like a trap. Um,
Mm,
and my daughter, my older daughter Rumi, it's like one day she wants to be a fairy, the next day she wants to be a doctor, the next day she wants to be a stylist, the next day, and she's like she's kind of fluid with all of those, and all of those are true for her in the moment. And so for me, I learn a lot. I learned so much from being a parent. And it's such a creative endeavor to be a parent. Like you're truly creating and nurturing these lives. And yeah, I think actually what motherhood has done for me in terms of not the discomfort of photography, but just it not feeling where I am, is that it really urges you to be on the path that you are meant to be on, even though it's uncomfortable, which for
yeah.
me, in a lot of ways, is like to be like a guide and a healer. And I'm, I had someone over today. We did a healing session together, and it's why I love photography. It's like that interface with other
Mm,
stories and to be witness to. And so we'll see how that evolves, through the film, through the birth deck, through all the
yes.
we show up as women. I mean, I think all mothers and all women, especially, are healers.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
If we can access that place and
yeah.
also allow ourselves to be healed in the process. Um,
I mean, being
but
held of being a healer, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, it is this merging of all these qualities, and I do think that we're trained, as you said, labels to fall short, because how expansive are each one of us, and how limited are the names that we place on what we do or who we are. Like, we don't have words for how infinite and extraordinary we can each become and are in each moment.
Totally.
So
That like the identity, we all have a desire biologically, also I think emotionally, to belong, right? And it's like, so it's like
mhm,
I'm a woman, I'm a this, I'm a that. And in a way that's very soothing, right? It feels really good. But at the end of the day, like they're only so good as they hold your truth, right? If they're
right.
not truth, or they feel like they're edging against your truth in a way that doesn't feel good, it may be a lonely path to let it go, but the reward of being in yourself is much greater than the loneliness. I think that's temporary.
Mm, yeah, having the courage to shed those skins.
Yeah, it's like the skin of, I'm trying to think of something. It's like being the fun person. That's a
Right,
label. Being the
right, right.
or always being the one, it's like whatever. Like being the selfless one is the one who loves.
Yes,
Maybe not,
yes,
you don't have to hold that, you know.
absolutely. And so, can you talk about Tiferet coming, you're so immersed now in this world of birth, and I also feel just I can't let it go. Even 6 9 months on, I just feel so deeply connected, even though my body is no longer holding a child and no longer opening to birth him. But can you talk a little bit about Tiferet through your pregnancy and your waiting? I know that it was a process of acceptance and waiting, and then the birth. And then I want to talk about it postpartum because I think that's so important.
Yeah, I mean, just in being pregnant, you're embodying both the need for restraint and to care for yourself and to rest and to care for your body and to not drink alcohol or do all the things that you don't do when you're pregnant. And then the immense kindness that you need toward yourself and towards this baby in allowing this being to grow inside of you is it's mind blowing.
Yeah,
And so the combination, the harmony or the reconciliation of all of that, I think is very apparent during pregnancy. For me, where I really felt Tiferet strongly in terms of how I'm thinking about Tiferet lately as reconciliation of our shadows, of those places that are unhealed and centering in our heart, is when I gave birth. I was 3 weeks late, or late. I was 3 weeks late, and I felt very connected to my baby and felt like she was okay. But understandably, people were concerned. They were worried. They're like, it's been 3 weeks. We don't ever let people go 3 weeks. We're very worried. And Zach is a very steady believer in me. So he's like, I trust Zivar. I trust what she's thinking. But the midwives were concerned, and my doula started to get concerned. And so I ended up going to the hospital. They wanted to induce me on Tuesday. I was like, I'm not ready. I need a minute to grieve that I'm not going to have a home birth that I want.
yeah,
By Thursday, I was ready, and I was like, I'm ready. And I went in, and it was my choice. I needed it to be my choice. But the hospital experience was very eye-opening, and it required me to be very deeply in my Tiferet, which is to be boundaried with what I needed, but to do it in a way that was compassionate towards myself, towards the people that were just trying to help. The nurses weren't there. The doctor wasn't there to hurt me. And so I always joke, I joke that it was like the greatest meditation retreat I've ever been on. The hospital, because they had
oh my,
every been attached to me, because they were worried that I was the first birth, if you can believe it, in Maimonides Hospital that was 3 weeks late ever.
wow,
Yeah.
wow,
And so, and then the post, and then coming up into the like what do you call it, the natal unit, and having to constantly remind them that I did not want to give my baby this, or that I wanted to have my baby in the bed with me. And it was very eye-opening, and I had a lot of support. I had my husband. A lot of women or birthing people don't have that, and it really inspired in me this idea of the birthing deck with my amazing doula Yiska, and she's a dear friend, because we all need to feel supported when we're giving birth. And a lot of women don't have that, and they don't know what they're getting themselves into, because you're in this moment, you're in birth of any kind is so hazy, you're over this threshold. And so I was proud of myself, but it was a journey to be
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember I had the baby Friday morning. I convinced them. It took a lot of convincing to let us go home.
yeah,
What's it? Saturday night. I got home. I've never been so grateful to be home. I was
yeah.
like, God, like, thank you that we have created this space that holds us.
Your nest that held you when you came home.
And that it reflects us. Like to
Yeah,
be a place that reflects you felt like such a relief. It felt safe. I was like, oh my God.
it felt so safe. And it's, I know the experience of being induced and what you're describing, this ability for you to hold uh, that cord, hold on to that cord of your own needs and wants and desires. And despite not having the home birth, your baby was birthed in the home because she came through you. She was with you, your energetic space. you take that with you where you go. It doesn't matter if, you know, in your physical home, which is a nice reflection, or in the hospital, she came into your energy. So I don't doubt she had that home birth in the deepest sense. And I think it's a gift that you're, you know, imparting those whispers to women who you may not even meet, and that strength and the courage with which you walked into that situation, and that's giving you extra layers of compassion, extra layers of Tiferet in order to produce this, which is going to serve so many.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yes, like the quality of compassion and empathy that comes through these experiences where you're in your toughest moments and you're able to through them and to reconcile is very profound. I mean, I'm thinking, I before we came on, I saw your posts about Sarah, you know, this French woman, and thinking about George Floyd and thinking about this girl who was shot in the chest and
I know.
And everything, and you're just like, we're so broken. And we've lost our internal centers because no one in their heart center does something like this. No one, no one. And it's kind of going back to this whole thing of labels. It's like our culture has created these identities for us that aren't, a lot of them are just not serving us, you know, and they're causing a lot of pain and disconnection from ourselves. And for me, that fragment of self is where a lot of the suffering and then the lashing out comes. Just aware of all of it.
I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because I've been feeling so heavy since yesterday, reflecting on all of these pure lives. And I think of it as I wrote, as I'm holding my baby, you know, I just think of all of these human beings as little babies in their mother's arms, and the trust with which they looked at their mother and they looked at humankind, and they entered the world with love and trust, and that we're abandoning one another, by, you know, not facing this brokenness, by not doing whatever we can in our spheres to bring healing and connectedness. And as you said, like, the person who does that has to be so disconnected from their heart, their heart center. So, you know, how do we show up as mothers, as women, as humankind, and make sure that children don't disconnect in that way?
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, it's like what Sefirot Omer comes every year, and we all evolve in our healing, and we all grow in our healing, and I feel more centered in myself than I've ever felt. And I continue to heal, but that doesn't mean I don't show up for everybody. It doesn't mean I don't show up for other people along the way. Part of the service, you know, and we all have different ways of service. You know, like for me, maybe the birthing deck is a service so that women can come home and love their babies in a way that they're meant to love them without the trauma of like the birth, the way they, or maybe it's, you know, whatever it is that we do is of value.
Yes.
If it's coming from that place of like service. Yeah, we're in a particular spot in the world, and I think that unfortunately our culture of constant stimulation and constant things coming at us is affecting our ability to feel our own hearts and what we actually need and want, and it's hurtful. It hurts.
It does. I think that so much of that, at least immediate and initial healing, comes through the people we surround ourselves with. And as you say, taking that solitude, but then in your most immediate circle, drawing in the people who are going to help you nourish that connection. And I know for you, I'm sure for you, that comes a lot through marriage. And I'm really grateful when you share little snippets of your experience with Zach, and you reflect on your relationship, and you have this beautiful image that you've posted holding at your wedding.
Mm.
I think it was with the talit, and that's how I remember it. Um, and can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I know I'm looking at the time, but just about your relationship with Zach and the compassion that you share in your message. I think so many can learn from how deep and beautiful your relationship is.
Uh, yeah, my husband. I love my husband. Hi, Rumi. Do you want to sit with mommy? I'm almost done. You're gonna go to bed. Maybe go to Bubba. Okay, baby? Yeah, I'm almost done. Zach is putting Rumi came out at the right. She just came out to say hi.
Right.
There's the
Or
short.
the
Uh,
harmony that you find
uh,
together, the balance you have of
yeah.
Gavura
Um,
in your relationship.
yeah. Zach. I was engaged twice before I met Zach. I broke them both off, and Zach and I had met actually after the first one. I was on my way to Peru, and we met really briefly on Yom Kippur, and
Wow.
he asked me out over email, and I just didn't respond. I'm like, I'm going to Peru, whatever. I don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
And then 7 years later, I was kind of at the end of a relationship, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye, like kind of crossing paths. And I was so taken by his spirit, but just kind of like let it be. And then a few months later, I saw him, and we've been together ever since. And so we got to really, he got to meet me. That those many years ago, sort of quietly trail me, and then we found each other again. And I think that I wasn't ready for him when I met him that first time. I didn't know what it meant to be with someone who was truly centered and happy and healthy. Like I thought that being an artist, I had to be with someone who was like morose and complicated and this. And when I met Zach, I was like, he's just like really joyful. Like he's too simple, right? And then I was in a really free space in my heart when I saw him again, and he just really, I was really taken by his joy. And so we started dating, and of course he became very complex, and he's a very
Yeah.
complicated and all that. And so I got to learn a lot about him. But the base of our relationship is that he's very grounded in himself and very he's just, our friends call him a unicorn because he's just very much himself. It's like a rare quality in anyone. And in our relationship, I was saying this to him the other day, I both feel very protected in terms of my own solitude and my own process, and he's very honoring of that. But at the same time, when I do come out, he's so supportive
Yeah.
and holds both the protector and the supporter. And I really feel like he was sent as a gift in this lifetime. I was like, I did something in another lifetime that allowed him to show up. And we care. We're very different in some ways, but we have this devotion to wisdom traditions and to wanting to be better and grow and evolve and take people along with us. And I
Yeah.
really supportive. He's also an artist, and he's such an incredible artist. So yeah, and we do have a very healthy, great relationship, and it's possible. I always say to people, it's possible, don't settle.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, yeah, I think everything that you explain comes across in the little moments that you share, and just to know that that process of allowing that you went through, and as you opened your heart, he was there to step in, and
Yeah,
that you share, and this idea of him being a supporter and a container for your loving process is another, if I can shrink it down, at this balance of Gevurah and Chesed manifesting in a harmonious relationship. And I'm sure dance between the two, and sometimes you're more the Gevurah and he's more the Chesed, but both of those forces exist. I know it exists in my marriage as well, and I think it's sometimes cool to step back and look at the Sefirot and their energies as they play out in the interpersonal role dynamics in the family.
um,
Um,
also
and
like,
even with children, I feel like I'm putting too much gavura here. I need more playfulness and love, and reach our children that way. And sometimes you need to set the limits more strictly. So I see those ideas coming up every day.
Oh, I mean, as a mom, I think as parents, as my with my husband, with both of us, it's like, how much do we, you know, create structure, and how much space do we give our daughters, especially my 5-year-old? And I get it wrong all the time. You know, it's like, it's not like there's a right or a wrong, but like we're just kind of playing. I loved your image of the dancer, because the dancer's kind of like here and there, and there's no like, it's not like the linear straight path. It's dancing between the two, right? Because balance doesn't exist. It's like the this and the that. Um, yeah, I love that. That's really beautiful.
Well, Zivar, thank you so much for your time. Your prediction of the daughter walking out of the room came true.
Ah!
And I really appreciate you giving your evening to us. I feel like you just added so much depth to my understanding of Tiferet, and this presentation of it as being so nuanced, so much more than just a balance of these two forces. That, as you spoke about Yaakov's journey, and his wrestling with the dynamics of his persona, with the dynamics of his world, and the idea that we're all doing that same dance today, you know, and that's how we find our Tiferet. It could be elusive, that it's not a stable place, that as things aren't always in balance, they evolve, they move, and that we can sort of find our Tiferet in different ways, in different moments of the day, at different periods of our lives. And I really do think that you're such a living example of that, and your devotion to it is a reminder for all of us, especially mothers, and especially creators, and especially, you know, postpartum, to keep honoring Tiferet, reaching for it, and knowing that we will by doing that, we're going to inspire and heal, and provide shade and nourishment for the people that we love. So I wish you so much beauty in your journey with your film and with the deck, and with these explorations. I know that we're all going to benefit so deeply from the art that you bring into the world, and I can't wait for you to share it with all of us.
Michaela, can I offer one image as I go?
Absolutely. You don't have to go.
Um, the friend, the person who was here today asked for something that brought her joy for the session, and she reminded me, I lead moon circles, and she reminded me that for Aquarius, for Shvat, a year ago, I talked about, the Kabbalah talks about the Aquarian, the Aquarius symbol as the water carrier, the person who walks through town with a pail of water, and it's drip dropping, and as she's walking, the rain is coming down, and it's filling the what do you call it, the pail. And as she walks, there's like flowers are blooming behind her because she's watering the flowers.
Wow.
Tiferet is that. I think of Tiferet. It's so beautiful that she brought that, and I just had this like reminder of like, oh, that's formlessness and form together.
Yeah.
That's formlessness of
Yeah.
chesed, form of gevura. It's to walk through the world and to be effortless, and to be like, you know what? I don't even need to reach for Tiferet as a postpartum mom. Just being here is Tiferet.
Yeah.
You know, in the moment with what is Tiferet. And so I hope that we can all allow ourselves to hold those pails, and to let them to be generous with the water, and know that it's coming down, and to be able to look behind us and say, wow, like look what grew behind me as I walked my own trail.
That is so magnificent, and thank
Kabbalah.
you. That's totally reshaped the image of Tiferet. It is so beautiful, and I'm going to hold that with me always. So thank you. I look forward to so many more conversations of learning from you, and hope you have a beautiful, beautiful sleep-filled night.
Yeah. Good night. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.